And they've even learned how to fake these video circles.
What's going on with KeineExchange and geography right now?
Short squeeze, right? You get it?
That's how it turns out.
Bitcoin will become such a boring instrument. I think, well, there just won't be the same volatility as there is on the market now. Trading on spot?
Well, it's like it doesn't help at all. It's already coming in so programmed.
Why can't I be an exchanger too? A money changer? Back then they were called money changers, right?
No one believed. But I went ahead and did it. No one believed. Time flew by so fast. Hello everyone, you're on the Activeka channel. Today we have an interview with Evgeny. Evgeny is the founder of a large cryptocurrency exchange company and the KeineExchange. Let's welcome Evgeny.
Hello.
Evgeny, could you please tell us how old you are and how long ago you started working with crypto in general?
At the age of 30, I started with crypto, but originally I was involved not with crypto exchanges, but with electronic currency exchanges starting from when I was 18. So there was a topic on a forum.
So you were getting traffic through the forum before
the forum. Well, there were sites like MGP, Invest Today, pop-up forums in search engines, the ones we all used to talk about. So I initially registered a topic there. Well, how did it all actually start? So it all started with the fact that I had my own website where I uploaded various movies and programs, and I was also good at using converters. Back then, you could make a movie in different resolutions, for example, for watching on a laptop, a computer, or a TV with different quality settings. One movie could be 700 megabytes, another could be 10 gigabytes.
It's the same as when we used to download things on our phones, right? When that became possible. There you could get a movie in 360p or say 720p, and the file size could be just 120 megabytes. You could download a full movie to your phone.
That's right. Also, we used to make packs for programs. So what I mean is back then there were a lot of pirated programs and you had to find a key to activate the software. For example, Microsoft Office, right? Back then, well, everyone used Windows, especially around 2010 to 2011 mostly, yeah? And accordingly, I would find the keys and put everything into an archive. So all the user had to do was download the link, extract the archive, and everything would work right away, guaranteed. I uploaded this to different sites like Deposit Files, FileSonic, and LetItBit. They would pay the uploaders, so for every 1,000 downloads, you'd get between $5 and $15. I was only, 17 years old at the time, I remember. I was just finishing school, and I was already making my first money from this.
That's cool.
Well, it would go like this. I'd take some popular program. For example, I'd upload a program like FineReader, which still exists now. You put in documents, it scans them, and the text appears not just as a photo, but as editable text, so you can change it. So I made a repack too, and I remember I spent about an hour working on it, but my download count was over 100,000. If for every 1,000 downloads those sites paid $10, it's not hard to calculate how much I made from that case back then. So later on, I decided, since I already had some money, even though I didn't have any business skills or experience at the time, to invest it. I got interested in various investment projects, but I didn't really understand them very well.
Was it crypto investment at that time?
Not at that time. Back then, I didn't know about crypto yet. We'll get to how I eventually got into crypto, but I just wanted to give you some background first. At that time, basically, I was investing in various projects that accepted payments through electronic payment systems, like PayPal or Perfect Money, for example.
WebMoney, probably.
WebMoney.
Including those.
Yes, among others. But mostly these were foreign payment systems. At that time, there was also Liberty Reserve, a payment system like that. It had no arbitration, completely anonymous. But now, at this point, it no longer works. Yeah, that's right, because at one point the owners were detained. And the system was shut down, but at that time it was very popular and many projects accepted it. And I saw this kind of chain. In order to invest, you didn't have to, say, deposit rubles directly. You could use the Kiwi payment system to fund WebMoney. Yes, usually this was done through a payment terminal back then. So those terminals were set up in stores, Kiwi terminals, where you could put in 5, 15, or whatever bills, even just one bill at a time. Then I would deposit rubles into WebMoney, exchange them for dollar WebMoney, and then buy these foreign payment systems, and each time there were fees. Remember, the terminal had a fee, a few percent.
At the same time, the fees were just outrageous. I remember when I used a Kiwi ATM to buy vContakte votes for myself to boost my rating. About 10 years ago, I remember paying a 7% commission. Chiwi took about 5% and another 2% was apparently taken by some third-party provider. But the fact is, when I handed over 100 rubles to buy votes at 20 each, and they still took another 7 rubles from me.
Yeah, but back then, the fees really were huge. I mean, even just exchanging WMZ for Liberty Reserve, the average fee at exchanges was 5% at that time. There were only about 10 to 15 exchanges on different forums, no more than that. And when I was investing in these projects, I was just learning how to use electronic payment systems. Back then, my investment experience wasn't the most successful because I didn't really understand the projects. But at least I learned how to use payment systems and realized that with those projects, I was giving my money to other people. And to invest, you need to understand things, know the team. Now, my understanding is broader. But I realized that I exchanged money through an exchanger, paid 5%, so why can't I be an exchanger myself? Back then, exchangers were called manually. So I realized that there was nothing complicated about, say, creating a thread on a forum. And when I had some money left over from those investment projects, where I actually ended up in the red and wanted to withdraw it back through an exchanger, I decided to do it not at a loss, but at a profit. And that's how I actually managed to exchange at a profit. I created a thread on the forum, found a buyer at first who even paid me a little extra, and I got a thrill from the fact that instead of paying, I was actually earning from this action. And then I set up a thread on the forum, made a table in Excel for the exchange rates at that time, listed several exchange directions, and set a minimal commission, about 1%, for example, because nobody knew me yet, and I needed to build up my reputation and trust somehow. It wasn't easy because on some forums my threads were even removed, and they would say, "We already have enough exchangers who will vouch for you," and so on. And even back then, I had friends. So when I was investing, I got to know one person. He had his own website, a review of investment projects, but he was also a moderator on the forums, one of the main ones. So when my thread got deleted, I asked him for help, and at that time I said, "Let me do work for you for free, but you promote me everywhere so my threads don't get removed." Basically, that's how it was. That's how things started to develop. That also gave me a push. It also helped me grow because without it, everything would have been much harder. So in any case, at the start of a business, there has to be someone who gives you that direction for growth, someone who supports you.
And this exchange service that originally worked with digital currency exchanges, was it already called Kane back then?
Back then, it was called Kane 37. I had that nickname online, and the service was named exactly that. KeineExchange, that was later when in 2015, I created a fully functional online website, so we didn't have to use the forum anymore, where you had to write everything in private messages. That's where people from Russia communicated. Jabber, that's what we used back then. ICQ agent, I remember, and the days of vKontakte, we had a group and real clients would contact us there and make exchanges. So about 10% of our traffic came through VK. So then I created the website and changed the name to KeineExchange accordingly. Just like now, that's what the exchange is called. And it was in 2015 that I first got acquainted with cryptocurrency. How did I get acquainted with it? My clients wrote to me saying they wanted to exchange Bitcoin for WebMoney at that time or for a card transfer. One person wrote, then another, and I started to get interested in what this Bitcoin was all about. At that time, I hadn't heard anything at all about cryptocurrencies.
So am I understanding correctly that it happened during a very specific period? You got 2 requests at once?
Yes, that's right. And one of the clients, I think, wanted to both buy and sell. I realized that.
Why?
Why would I refuse if a client is exchanging some crypto or payment system? At that time, I didn't understand that crypto was something more than just another payment system, that it was an entire direction of development. But I quickly got acquainted with this theory and realized that it was promising. Of course, I couldn't have imagined that the price would grow so much. Back then, Bitcoin was worth about $100, and I didn't expect it to rise that high. I certainly didn't anticipate it, but I understood that there was real demand, the technology was very interesting, and there was nothing else like it.
You're the second person I've talked to, the second person I've heard from who saw the price below $100 to $200. Because I have an acquaintance, he's a mobile app developer. And he had this interesting story. When demand for Bitcoin just started, he was paid in Bitcoin for developing Java games, paid in Bitcoin. And he told me that at that time he was getting $300 a month in Bitcoin. And to cash them out into rubles at that time, he would spend about 40% in fees for the whole process. Because first you had to exchange Bitcoin for some other coin, right? They could take about 15 or 16% in commission from him at that stage. Then he would go further, exchanging them for some other digital electronic money, and only after that could he finally get rubles. And he told me that they worked for a whole year, and for that year he was paid $300 in Bitcoin, back when Bitcoin was worth about $200 to $300. So he said that you could actually save up a bit.
But at that time, mining data was much easier to collect. Well, at least you could get hundreds of Bitcoins.
Okay, got it. Look. So, as it turns out, you really focused on the whole exchange story. At first, you worked with regular traditional money, and then, after some time, you started working with cryptocurrency. Tell me, please, after you switched to crypto, did you consider any other options? Did you consider any other ways to make money in crypto, or did you invest anywhere else besides putting money into developing your own exchange?
I invested in different coins and projects. Well, at that time, during the boom of 2017, when the crypto market was flourishing, when Bitcoin grew from $1,000 to $20,000 and then dropped to $3,700. During that cycle, there were a lot of different funds and high-tech companies emerging, offering improvements based on blockchain, but many of them didn't survive, meaning they couldn't make it through the crypto winter. So yes, at that time, considering my previous experience, I didn't just trust projects blindly, and even back then, I was already good at telling what was a pyramid scheme, what wasn't, and whether a company had a real founder, if there was actual profit, and what the project was earning from. I understood things well, and that saved me from major financial losses at the time, although I know many people who invested in those projects, only a handful actually made a profit, honestly. So I ended up focusing on transparent coins and blockchains like Ethereum, which essentially create an alternative to Bitcoin, and a pretty solid one at that. After all, Ethereum is the number 2 cryptocurrency. It comes right after Bitcoin. And
what do you think, out of the top 30 on CoinMarketCap, are all those projects worth investing in, or do you have some doubts about certain ones?
For the most part, if we're talking about the top 30, you still need to look more closely at anything beyond the top 10, but nothing guarantees that even if a coin is in the top 5, something couldn't happen to it. Take the history of major exchanges. Even FTX, for example, was one of the largest exchanges. Their token was considered reliable, at least according to many people. But a collapse happened, essentially, that's what occurred.
Everyone got burned there.
So that's why you still need to, no matter how much you believe in a company or the crypto industry, keep your eggs in different baskets, in different projects and coins if you're building a portfolio. Because if something happens to one coin, it doesn't necessarily mean the same will happen to another. Like right now, at the present time, we can still observe that the entire crypto market is, let's say, going down. There's a pullback happening now, but some coins are holding their positions and not following the rest of the market. So the whole market might be falling, but a particular coin could be growing.
So, 61,600 today. Are we going to go even lower, I wonder?
That's a very difficult question, but I'll speak based on facts from previous experience. Even during a bull run, there can be very deep corrections. If you analyze the charts, really sit down and look at them, during previous local and all-time highs, corrections reached 10 to 30%. So even now there could be a drop from the peak of 20 to 30%, but that doesn't mean that after that Bitcoin and the entire crypto market also won't recover quickly in a week and go on to set new highs. It's just that right now they're shaking out the weak hands, so to speak, because many people who bought in above 65 might be getting scared now. Same with Ethereum. Other coins are also trading high, around 200.
At night, the coin was at 200, and back in the fall, it was around 60. Now it's at 200.
But now it's dropping faster than all the others, losing about 10% a day, down to 160 or so, or at this level. So that's important. Again, so here's my advice for those who are trading these coins, since the market is active. For us spot traders, the only thing is, if you are trading, you really need to use your head, not emotions, but reason and resilience to downturns. In other words, don't panic, like many people do when something is already overbought. When Bitcoin was rising, everyone was ready to invest in it. Now, as soon as it drops, many people start to panic, thinking it's going to fall even further. But actually, if you look at it in the long term, all these pullbacks are a good opportunity to enter the market. That's why you shouldn't give in to emotions or play with futures, because I can't stress this enough about futures. It's the biggest source of income for crypto exchanges, for various large ones. And these leveraged trades, yes, you can make a lot in the moment, but then get carried away and lose a lot too. From all the people I've talked to who played this game, basically, their stories are all pretty much the same. Unfortunately, in the long run, if a trader can't stop in time when using leverage, they end up losing their entire position anyway, for one reason or another.
I noticed this too, and I completely agree with you. Personally, I look at trading futures like playing in an online casino because here you're basically buying a chance to make money. Yeah, I definitely only like spot trading because even if you go into the red, it's just minus 10 or 20% and you can still get your money back. With 10 times leverage, any 10% price movement will completely liquidate your position. That's why right now probably a lot of people got wiped out. By the way, yesterday there was some strange situation. On one of the exchanges, Bitcoin dropped to a magical number. I don't remember which exchange it was. I read the news about it this morning.
It was on BitMEX.
There was a massive liquidation there. It was insane. All right, okay.
Yeah, it was a short squeeze. They got caught.
That's how it turned out. Look, I understand that you're familiar with crypto, you invest in it, so tell us about it. Please, you have your main business with exchanges, you invest. So for you, which is more important, is crypto more about earning money by investing, or is it a tool for you that helps you make payments around the world? Do you believe more strongly that it's primarily a technological process designed for exchanging and transferring funds between parties? Or do you think it is mainly about investing as well as making money and generating profit from it? I
think it's both. That is, I think when we look at crypto, we should pay attention to the fundamental things from the start, to the possibilities of crypto, like the fact that we don't know who created Bitcoin. Essentially, this anonymity, where the owners of many wallets, if it's not an exchange, aren't linked to a passport, means there's an unverified option available. It's cheap to send transfers, even huge amounts, all over the world, if you compare that to traditional bank transfers, for example, especially considering the current situation with Russia, for instance. In general, SWIFT transfers there barely work anymore, and only with a small list of countries, so crypto remains as an option. These possibilities of crypto are clearly visible, and indeed, in most cases, crypto comes to the rescue, allowing cross-border transfers to be made while bypassing sanctions safely. So specifically, if we're talking about Russia or even just about payments in general, back when everything was still working, if you sent money via SWIFT, it would take anywhere from 3 to 7 days, and the bank fees were high. Take Bitcoin or USDT on the Tron network, for example. The fee, well, now everyone says that the fees are often not $2, but $3 to $4, but that's still very cheap. You can send $1 million and pay just $3 in fees. The fee will be the same. The fee will be the same even if you're sending it to the other side of the world. And it's these fundamental capabilities of cryptocurrencies to carry out all these operations essentially that attract various sectors, which in turn make it possible to use crypto for such transactions. These cross-border transfers are available both for individuals and for companies. And also you can't take more than $10,000 abroad, but if you're carrying a crypto wallet, and there are millions of wallets, which you can also buy at exchanges in Russia for rubles or dollars. So you can transfer it without any problem. No one will stop you at the border or say, hey, that's a crypto wallet, let's check your balance. I mean, for now, that just doesn't happen.
Well, maybe it will in the future.
Maybe it will, but on the other hand, you could just...
Well, it's hard to imagine for now.
Even if that does happen, I think it's really stupid because, well, let's say I'm the owner of a wallet, I cross the border, and I leave the wallet behind on some device with a trusted person in Russia, right?
I call them on Telegram and say, I verify myself, TRC-20TDJ. Start, end, and that's basically it. That's it.
That's right. That's absolutely right. And yes, I always prefer to call myself either audio or video calls because this artificial telegram thing is a whole separate topic. Now, with AI, they've learned to even fake those video circles. Basically, they can analyze them, and if scammers get access to your Telegram, they can take some old video circle and overlay any audio on it to confirm something. That's why even in peer-to-peer, I remember there was a story where a scammer created a request to buy crypto, saying it was 1,000,000 rubles from Sberbank. You remember that story, right? And he used artificial intelligence to make it look like he was actually logging in and that the payment was real. But the crypto seller never received the money, and the scammer tried to resolve it through arbitration, claiming, here's my transfer, the seller is up to something. If the seller hadn't taken any action, or if he had just ignored it for a day or two, he might have simply lost his crypto. That's why if you're involved in trading, in peer-to-peer, in exchanges, you always need to stay connected. It's important. Even a single day of letting your guard down can lead to consequences. That's why I try to always stay connected. Even on weekends, if I'm offline for 2 hours, I already start to feel uneasy because it's better
to always be available. But what about when you're flying then?
What about when you're flying? Well, if you're in this business, you need to have a team. You need to have trusted people, partners, deputies. It doesn't matter as long as there are people who can also make decisions in emergency situations and stay connected. In other words, someone from the team must always be available. It's important.
But am I right in understanding that KeineExchange operates 24/7?
At the moment, we work almost every day. Our website is up and running now. In Moscow, we operate from 4 a.m. to midnight, so that's 20 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Around-the-clock service.
We're considering switching to a 24/7 schedule because our geography is quite broad now. We have offices in Vladivostok and Khabarovsk, where the time difference with Moscow is significant, and we also have locations in Europe and America. So essentially, we're currently building a team, training them, and planning to move to a full 24/7 format.
Great. Now that we've moved on to the topic of geography, tell us more about it. Please, am I right in understanding that by opening an exchange in, say, Kenya or China, it can perform various money transfer functions? So let's quickly go over what's in demand right now. Among my acquaintances, a lot of people are buying real estate abroad. Can this be done through you using crypto, right?
That's right.
You can pay for it. Everyone is worried about payments right now. What needs to be paid for? Some kind of raw materials somewhere abroad. Russian companies can't process the payments. Can you handle that as well?
Yes, we can help with that.
You can help with moving money around. I can hand over money in Moscow at the office and receive, say, cash somewhere in Phuket, right?
Either cash or in Thailand, there's this cool feature where you can withdraw money from an ATM using a code. So we give out a code, the client goes to the ATM, there are several banks, enters the code. They actually get cash, just like it used to be in Russia, and actually it's still available now. But at Tinkoff Bank and at those Tinkoff and Arkady ATMs on Kirov, they're not working well now. It takes 5 to 7 tries to withdraw. That's why many clients and we as well have stopped working in that direction. But about 2 years ago, this technology worked perfectly in Russia, back when many clients were withdrawing money.
No one believed. But I went ahead and did it. No one believed. Time flew by so fast. Hello. This is the Axiom channel. Our company develops Web3 products for businesses, and we address a wide range of issues related to the tokenization of your business and other products. We develop smart contracts, launch blockchain projects, and of course share our expertise through our YouTube channel so you can understand what cryptocurrency is. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay updated on news and new releases. This is Axiom. Flew by so fast. It was very convenient. Just yesterday, I flew in from Thailand. I went up to an ATM and sent money to someone via Bybit. He told me to take a picture of what was shown on the ATM, so I pressed the button and took a photo. He said, "Press the bright green button." I pressed it. The money came out. Everything was very quick. The exchange rate there suited me, especially since those local money changes usually offer 5% less than the exchange rate on the exchange. So if you look at it overall, it turns out it's not really that profitable. Honestly, it's easier to just take your phone, message someone on Telegram, and have them give you cash right away. Okay, great. I also wanted to ask, how wide is your geographical coverage? Because I understand that you have your own offices here in Russia. You have your own office and you have partner offices. We'll talk about those a bit later. How are things abroad? So, just curious, do you work there with some business partners or colleagues? Or who acts as your contractor over there?
Well, in some countries we have our own offices, like in Georgia, for example. Accordingly, in Turkey and Thailand, these are our own couriers or employees working in the offices. And in some countries, we have trusted contractors who operate in the local market and handle our requests. Because right now, we are actively expanding abroad, obtaining licenses in some places like we are currently doing in Georgia. But still, the international market, it's very difficult to cover everything at once, but the requests keep coming in. That's why sometimes we find trusted suppliers, do a few deals with them ourselves, meaning we need to make sure this partner is reliable. And only after that do we process deals through them. But again, we are responsible for this partner. If something happens to our client on the other side due to the partner's fault, we bear full financial responsibility. It's important to understand that.
Your path to success, just like Zhenya's, starts right here with our ready-made exchange solution. We offer not just an exchange, but a full-fledged business with access to over 350 cryptocurrencies and 1,700 trading pairs. We will develop your project in just 2 months and help you reach an income of $10,000. Together, we will ensure the growth of your business from SEO optimization to guaranteed listing on the top monitoring site BestChange. All this and much more, including even cash buy and sell operations. We will create it all for you, so you can easily find and use the most profitable offers. Take your business to the next level with us. Start right now. Follow the link in the description to get the presentation and schedule a call. Good luck. And what about the current key action in terms of geography? Where can you provide your services? Maybe there is a specific list of countries, a certain number.
A list of countries. At the moment, we actually have a broad geography. If we're talking about Russia, then it's 45 cities within Russia, and the number of our offices is constantly growing. So we have a very extensive network. We are present in all the major cities with over 1 million people, as well as in smaller cities like Ulyanovsk, Sevastopol, Khabarovsk, Omsk, and Kemerovo. That is, in cities where, in principle, there are very few exchanges, or basically none at all. In some cities like Stavropol, we're actually the only ones operating, if you put it that way. As for network exchanges, if we're talking about other countries, as I mentioned, the United Arab Emirates is one example. And it's not just Dubai, we operate in Sharjah and Ras Al Khaimah as well, and also in Abu Dhabi. For some reason, everyone always talks about Dubai, but in reality, there are economies in the other Emirates too. There was also a high demand for crypto there. Next is Turkey, of course, Istanbul, Antalya, Alanya, and we're also focusing on Mersin, basically all over Turkey. Thailand, not just Phuket, but also Pattaya and Bangkok, of course. In Indonesia, we operate on the island of Bali. We also have partners in Australia. So in Australia, we also made payouts or processed SWIFT payments to Australia. In other words, we were offered this, so we do have payments going through to Australia. Because I remember there was a case with a client who said, I contacted a third-party exchanger, and they were sending either from a company or from private individuals. SWIFT payments weren't coming through, they were being rejected. We paid them using a specific technology, everything worked for us, and now the client works with them all the time. Then there's Australia, here are the payments. Europe, we have an office in Barcelona, and we work from 100 euros per transaction. Because in Europe now, that's the trend. But a lot of exchange services operate through couriers, meaning in Europe, they pick up the money there.
I noticed I helped with one deal there, and it was really strange to me that someone was helping me. For the deal, I sent a photo of a €5 bill. I didn't understand what that was about. He said send it to the person who will meet with the courier. I sent it, and the courier requested verification, first a photo, and then started the exchange. They have their own quirks over there too.
Technology, yes, technology. So yes, I'll finish telling you about the geography, and then I'll also talk about the cash-out technologies we use. So in Europe, specifically in Spain, in Barcelona, and actually all over Spain, we can do this. We can do table-to-table exchanges starting from minimal amounts. At the moment, this European country is our strongest in terms of geography. We work in Canada, in Toronto, and in the USA, in Miami and New York. So if you look at our geography, we offer exchange services on different continents. We've also done cash outs in the Dominican Republic and in Argentina. Basically in many countries, sometimes we do it ourselves, sometimes through partners. There are no problems at all. So our capabilities are quite broad. Cool. And we can also pay invoices for cars. Right now, a lot of people are paying for goods that will be imported into Russia. We can legally, for example, we have a service to make legal purchases with a company with Russian mining. We offer a service to legally purchase mining equipment from a Russian company. This is something that's being done now as well. And this request is not coming from individual miners, but from those buying on a large scale. In other words, there are companies that want to enter mining legally and invest very large sums of money for the future. Because mining is currently truly effective. It's not about having just 3 ASICs or even 15. It's when you have 1,000 ASICs. Soon, I believe the era of industrial scale mining will arrive. Yes, you can still mine some coins with a graphics card, but that's really a thing of the past now. Well, that's how everyone used to do it before.
Okay, so what happens next? Now everyone is mining and there's only a tiny percentage left. What will happen to all this equipment after that? Where will it go? I think you understand that there's really not much left to mine.
Mining, well, basically, yes, but again, considering how difficult mining is now, and with every Bitcoin mined, the difficulty keeps increasing. And therefore, these last percent that remain, according to forecasts, will be mined until 2042. Well, here is the remainder, and the question is, what will be the price at that time, and what will be the demand? Of course, the important thing here is that the area is needed, it is actively used, and there are large investments. Because if there weren't such people in Lebanon, then most likely no one would need this mining, but it wouldn't save anyone in any way, essentially. I mean, it didn't influence the price rate, and here are all these events. Therefore, it is important here that ETFs have also accepted Bitcoin. It's important that traditional financial institutions, though reluctantly and with difficulty, are still recognizing the popularity of crypto and the popularity of investing in these instruments. And
they are opening access, and importantly, the cryptocurrency market is joining the stock market.
That is, we've already reached this important point where many regulators could have simply banned crypto under threat of criminal liability and so on. And I think that if that had happened, we wouldn't have reached the current level of capitalization of Bitcoin that we have now. Bitcoin's capitalization has already surpassed various companies, Tesla, Visa, MasterCard, and other major corporations at this point in time. Well, the only thing is, once all the Bitcoin has been mined, Bitcoin will become such a boring instrument, I think. I mean, there won't be the same volatility as there is on the market now.
Well, then probably after that, things will gradually move into altcoins. All the liquidity will shift there if Bitcoin loses its relevance.
I don't think it will just lose its relevance, but there will be very low price fluctuations, meaning, well, when the market capitalization is, say, 50 times higher than it is now. Just to move the market, manipulations like now, someone makes a statement, some player or regulator, and Bitcoin crashes, well, it won't be as susceptible anymore. For example, the dollar's exchange rate against other currencies doesn't have such volatility. Yes, it happens, but the dollar itself rarely crashes if you look at it.
Yeah, right.
So there will just be more stability. Actually, for some holders, that's an important point. Some people want that. Some people don't want any stability. There are these big holders, whales, who have already made money and accumulated a huge amount of Bitcoin.
They're just waiting quietly now. They can start locking in profits.
That's right, but I think they're even waiting for Bitcoin to hit 70. This showed that a lot of whale investors were waiting for that mark to lock in profits. But big funds, like not just MicroStrategy, I see that they keep buying Bitcoin, picking up any local dip, and they always keep buying.
Argentina, I think, or El Salvador, where it's been legalized. They're buying more there.
In El Salvador, it's been legalized. There, I think the president of El Salvador who legalized it, well, of course, he's really a champ in that regard, yeah, but that deserves respect, that's respect. But I can imagine how he must have felt when he bought Bitcoin and then it dropped down to 18. And I think over there, well, everyone was saying, why did he do that?
He's definitely a champ if he kept buying during that time, just like he's buying now. Then today everyone would be praising him.
I read that El Salvador, this is one of the latest news, has actually removed all government duties and taxes on foreign investments into the country for the development of El Salvador. That is, there's no tax at all, 0%. So it's clear that the country intends to actively attract foreign investment and develop.
Yeah, and you can even get citizenship there if you invest. Also, it seems both crypto and you can even invest somewhere there.
But they got there before us. They're pioneers in that area. But it's really cool. Something is happening.
I hope it'll reach us soon too. Everything eventually does, so we just need a little more time.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's pause here and continue with the money transfer technologies.
About money transfer technologies. Yes, we have this situation. For example, sometimes a client isn't at the office, wants to pay with USDT crypto, but through the website. So they create a request, pay in advance with crypto, USDT, or electronic money, and want to receive cash. For example, one client pays but says, my friend or my trusted person will pick it up for me. And we have a technology for this. We require the person who made the payment to provide the original banknote. I mean, they need to photograph the banknote, 50, 100, 500, or 1,000 rubles, so that the serial number is clearly visible. This is mandatory. And the trusted person or the client themselves who made the payment must come with the original of that banknote, and this will serve as identification. Thank you.
As a guarantor.
And our employee, or again the courier, must photograph this banknote as proof that we met. The money was handed over because, unfortunately, we've had cases where we handed it over, or so we thought, and then from the client's side, his gift, the item, never reached him, and he was clarifying what happened, trying to prove the handover to him. Yes, we have cameras and audio everywhere in our office. It's all recorded, ladies and gentlemen. For example, when clients, there are such clients, arrive, say in Moscow or somewhere else, and they tell us they don't have time to come up to the office, they tell us, I'll transfer the money, just bring it out to me, I'm in a hurry, and we report everything on camera, actually bringing out the cash right there. So if there's ever a dispute where a client says, for example, that 20,000 or some other amount is missing, everything is counted and packed precisely on our end to prevent such situations. We also use security bags, meaning special packaging. If someone tries to open it along the way, it will be noticeable. And we use the serial numbers on the bags to prevent any substitution. In other words, we take this very seriously when it comes to the protection and security of our clients.
That's cool. Okay. Look, I wanted to ask an interesting question about your offices. You have offices, both your own and franchised ones, right?
That's correct.
Could you please tell us how it works? What is the difference between your office and a franchised office? I mean, within the company structure, how are transactions carried out? What are the differences so people can understand? If I want to open my own exchange under your brand within the main network, what functions would I be responsible for and how would my entire work process be organized?
Yes, I'll explain. We indeed have an official franchise program and we successfully launched it in 2022. In 2023, a lot of franchise partners joined us. So, what does it mean to be a franchisee? It means the partner operates under our brand. That is, they use our trademark. I have it registered everywhere. There are documents in Rospatent, and we sign an agreement for the provision of know-how services. This includes complete training. That is, all the pitfalls of this business. I explain everything. I have video lessons recorded there. They are available there, where my assistants or I personally supervise the new partner to make sure that they gain this knowledge, and when making deals, the partner doesn't make the same mistakes that I did back in the day when I was gaining experience. Because all these rules are usually written with money.
Yeah, you paid for your experience.
That's why I believe that this knowledge is something you really need to focus on. The emphasis, the partnership. First and foremost, you need to learn and acquire knowledge. The second step is to open an office, that is to equip it according to all the standards. Yes, we help with how to do this safely, where the cameras should be located, which ones, and where the data should be stored. In other words, our security block is also fully detailed. Absolutely, so that the partner knows how to properly open an office and how to work correctly. The third step is about recording profits, reports, accounting. So basically, accounting is also a very important aspect to calculate profits correctly.
When people buy a franchise, is the accounting handled by their own internal accountant for the franchise part or by yours?
Usually the partner has their own accountant, or if they're just starting out, they handle the process themselves at first. But of course, our accountants also check everything. We have a certain level of automation in this process, meaning there are specific spreadsheets that we fill out, deal rates are recorded, profits are calculated automatically, but even so, we're currently developing certain CRM solutions and systems so that everything is fully automated without the possibility of any data tampering, so that manual checks are not required at all. Right now, at this moment, of course, we double check everything manually, not just by our accountants. Our partner also has their own accountant because there should be several accountants and thorough checks. This is absolutely the most important thing. If your accounting is poor, and I know that many exchange services do their accounting on the fly. They do their calculations in Word or jot things down in a notebook, somehow keeping track of deals. Everything is counted manually, absolutely everything.
There's a note here.
And some people don't count at all. They say, my balance just keeps growing, I spend on living, I seem to be enjoying life, my money keeps increasing, and I don't worry about it.
And
he doesn't even know what his expenses are, where he could cut costs or where he could increase his profits. So it doesn't matter what your level is or how much capital you have. The rules are the same for everyone. You need to know your expenses and income clearly, monitor the situation, ideally every day, all the time, and keep everything under control. There should be a well-established accounting system, and you should try to automate and simplify it as much as possible. That's important too. Now, once we write the solution and work it out, we're even thinking about packaging this product for other exchanges and selling it. Why not?
That's cool. And for example, with your own internal developments for optimizing do you also share these process optimizations with your franchise partners? Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. We share all our developments, how we do things with our partners. Absolutely.
That's cool. And am I right in understanding that you said you have an online exchange? Is that correct? So if I, for example, am in Ulyanovsk and want to exchange cryptocurrency for cash, is that possible? Can I do that through your exchange and then just pick up the money at your partner's office? Is that correct?
Yes, that's absolutely right.
Great, that's excellent. And I can also transfer money from one office to another, right?
Transfer money, no problem at all. And if it's abroad, that's not an issue either.
But what if, for example, I don't want to carry the money myself? I hand it over in Ulyanovsk and pick it up in Moscow?
But in any case, it basically has to go through a crypto exchange, even in Ulyanovsk, buying USDT in Moscow and selling it for rubles, so it's like a double exchange.
Got it? Okay, cool. Tell us, please, what are the plans for KeineExchange in 2024? What are you planning to do? What are you aiming to achieve?
Here are our plans. First, in terms of the number of offices, we currently have about 50 of our own locations. We want to increase that number to 100. In other words, we want to double the number of offices and our representative presence over the course of 2024. Second, we want to develop what I mentioned earlier, a fully automated CRM system so that deals aren't handled in one place, like on the website or in the CRM, and accounting is somewhere else, for example. That is, so that everything isn't scattered, but instead brought together into a single system, a product, and achieve maximum automation, automating some internal processes that are currently done manually.
Cool. So this will be a CRM for the exchange service, right?
Yes, there will be a CRM for the exchange service. That's right, a CRM for the exchange service. And we're working on it. In fact, in the next few days, we're launching a new website design. We've updated the design because we felt it was necessary just a bit. Well, you need to update the design every few years so it always looks modern. And in the new version of the design, we've added a map. Specifically on the map of Russia, you can see where we are located. A map of Russia where you can click on a point, see the city, and get the contact information to make an appointment. In other words, to make things easier. Because people often told us, yes, there is a city selection in OFBST, but on the website, when creating a referral, there's only a list of cities. And I think, and some people wrote to me or told me, that it's hard to find where exactly you are located. That's why we put a map right on the main page, so that everyone who visits can see our exact locations. I think this will make things easier for many people, because we've encountered situations where a client is making an appointment in one city, but doesn't even know that we've opened in another city. They don't read the news on social media, even though we post it there. But when this map is on the main page, I think it will make things easier for many. That's the first note about the design. In general, we're doing something like this. I believe that in this field, as far as we know, most people work through Telegram, and clients are used to it.
Everyone works through Telegram?
Yeah, it seems so. It's convenient. Some have a bot, some don't. But the point is, right now we're creating a dual product. At the same time, it will be both a Telegram bot and an app. So it will be an app initially, but there will also be a Telegram bot version. And there will be the option to book an appointment through the app, specifically for a particular office with a specific employee at a specific time. Just like how we book, for example, some...
For a haircut, yes. There's that clients.
It's good. We want to do it exactly the same way. You choose an office and an employee, and you can read reviews about them. You pick a time when they are available, and that's it. And you book an appointment so that it's not done manually, where you have to write on the website or in Telegram, just to make the process as simple as possible for clients. Right now, we're analyzing and working on simplifying the procedure and these kinds of processes. We notice certain aspects in the industry that, frankly, are still a bit outdated.
I completely agree with you. As someone who has been using crypto for a long time, I might use peer-to-peer for small amounts, but when it comes to larger sums or transactions, I always use an exchange service. And honestly, I would be even more satisfied if I had one. If I had a mobile app for exchange services on my phone, which I could use every time I wanted to make an exchange. And there, for example, I could submit a request for a meeting. Of course, there are some factors, like for instance, I often try to negotiate the price or the exchange rate. This is something that also needs to be considered in the app so that you can somehow resolve it in advance, otherwise you end up just scheduling a meeting. The rate there isn't exactly what you wanted, and you end up leaving with only a fixed rate.
But the problem is with the rate. But I get it, yes. So this is the situation. The client sees the rate, goes for it, but by the time they arrive, the exchange rate has already changed at that moment, right?
Yeah. Or, either set a fixed rate like online. At the exchange, you can either choose a floating rate or a fixed rate.
No, actually, we already have all of that. I mean, we do. If a client is selling crypto, they can pay in advance and lock in the rate. So you create an order, pay, and that's it. The rate is fixed. We have no right to change it. And then the client can come at any time to pick it up, of course. And in the other direction, when someone brings us cash, we also lock in the rate. But for us, that's an extra service. It's an additional service. That is, the client has to make a deposit. Why? A deposit, because if we lock in the rate for the client, for example, the client arrives and the market, what do? Let's say he wants to come and buy. We buy the amount for him on the exchange in advance because, well, the client might show up. For example, in the evening, the rate could drop by 3 rubles or rise by 3 rubles.
He was stuck in traffic, so who should pay for that?
Yes. So if we don't buy in advance and lock in the rate, and then the rate goes up, we'll end up selling at a loss to ourselves, yes, more than we can afford. That's why it's important to make sure the client is definitely going to complete the transaction. So here we take the client's deposit and say, we'll lock in the rate for the whole day. But if the deal doesn't go through, for any reason at all, there's a penalty, 0.5% of the deposit amount.
Okay, that's fair. I completely agree. That's reasonable. Since we're talking about clients, I wanted to ask an interesting question. Please tell us about your most negative experience with a client during an exchange. One that maybe even made you consider quitting the exchange business altogether and never coming back to it.
So that these kinds of cases, well, in this business, of course, there are a lot of hidden pitfalls when it comes to exchanges. Yes, that's usually the case. Here, I see several risks, first and foremost. First, you need to have very trustworthy people on your team who handle large amounts of cash. If an employee, say, gets offended, something snaps in his head, and he's transporting 60 million, or he receives it and then decides to run off somewhere, basically, for example, to disappear with the money. So you also need to think about designing the system in such a way that you always understand that no matter what documents you have, you may have legally signed contracts with the person, but if they disappear and don't have enough assets, how are you going to get the money back? We all know there may be contracts, but if the person declares bankruptcy and has nothing, they go bankrupt and that's it.
You won't get anything at all.
Legally, that doesn't help at all. So there needs to be a security system in place so that a person simply cannot leave the office with the money. In other words, you need to set up the control system accordingly. There are no universal solutions here. Of course, you could say that even security staff might collude, especially when large sums of money are involved. There have been cases where, for big money, people conspire, form groups, and so on in order to they split the money among themselves. Yes, things like that. I mean, this doesn't just happen at currency exchanges. It happens in different companies and organizations. When I talked to top managers from various companies, they told me that theft within companies is a big problem, especially in large organizations. Employees steal, they fudge something in the reports, things like that. Some other amounts, yes, for example, here you really need to pay close attention. For instance, we use cameras. Well, we watch directly. They're writing something there in the report. Some other amounts, for example, at this point, you really need to pay close attention. So, for instance, with the cameras, we actually monitor and record every transaction and check how much money was received. First of all, for the counting machines, we have a program that shows the machine's usage, how much money it has counted at any given time, and the total amount counted. Secondly, with the cameras, to make sure that there isn't a situation where an employee receives money in the office, writes down 5 million in the table as 4,990,000. So, regarding the exchange rate, if the amount is large and the exchange office charges a 1% commission, the rate might drop, but the deal will still be profitable. Yes.
Well, yes.
The studio can keep skimming off the top all the time. And how else can you figure this out if not with cameras? How else can you know if not with cameras? So, we even have algorithms in place for situations where, say, a camera suddenly turns off by accident, right? Now, in Russia, if a camera like that can be turned off, we simply stop the office's operations and don't process any transactions. We don't send any of the funds. And if something is sent, it's done by other people, not by us, and those are employees. In the office, there is access to the crypto wallet.
It's really cool if
you just stop work immediately, and we have a specific algorithm for that. So what I'm saying is that all of this needs to be carefully thought out because there are a lot of risks. Have I ever had moments when I wanted to quit? Yes, there were, when the whole system was not well thought out. As I said, experience played a role. You learn from your mistakes because there are very few people who openly teach how to work in this field, right? I mean, there really aren't any.
That's a big problem. Like if I want to launch my own exchange, whether online or offline, I can't find a similar system on the internet, unlike when I wanted to learn web development. I mean, this is a huge market. And for some reason, people are afraid to get into it.
Well, that's because, yes, there's little information, little transparency, and a lot of questions that arise right from the start. Well, we actually address all these questions for our partners, those who join us through the franchise. We answer and resolve all of them. But again, maybe this is just the kind of field where you can't have everything completely open and accessible. A lesson that explains everything about the business probably shouldn't exist. That would be wrong. Yes, it's one thing. It's a different matter when it's a franchise partner who has capital, whom we've vetted, who is truly ready to work in this field, a serious entrepreneur with a background. It's another thing entirely if everyone has access. I think that's...
I agree. And actually, speaking of openness and access, I wanted to perhaps explore in greater depth your area of work in more detail. Let me say again that I'm really glad that it was you who responded to my invitation, because many major players don't want to step into the public eye and talk about their specifics. But still, I understand that if you want to grow further and higher and become a major player, sooner or later you have to do it. You, as I understand it, are looking in that direction. Because it's clear that there's a trend, so what's happening now? KeineExchange is an exchanger. They have about 60 offices. But what is point B for KeineExchange? Is it that you want to become an exchange? Do you want to become an improved version of Guarantex? So, what is your primary mission within your KeineExchange?
We want to become a holding company, specifically a corporation with a wide range of services, so that it includes exchange products, payment cards, and a payment system, the ability to develop our own services, tokens, and we have some kind of investment platform. Well, right now there are conferences going on, and we're there with our merch, our own. We are constantly releasing it and are thinking of launching it for sale so that when someone comes to the office, there are some products and services available, interesting ones that the client might want to buy. So it's a holding company with a set of different companies and services, because that's exactly the direction we plan to work in.
So in the future, KeineExchange will represent a group of companies which will include various ones, companies that provide services related to exchange and cryptocurrencies.
Yes, the Kane Group. We actually have a very comprehensive and extremely extensive list of different services and solutions that we are able to sell, provide, and offer to our clients and customers.
Cool, awesome. So it's kind of like Web3 banking?
Yes, something like that.
A bank with elements of crypto, transfers, cross-border payments, and so on.
That's right. That's what we're moving towards.
Could you tell us, please, if you do not mind, which exchange directions were the most in demand and popular in 2023?
The most in-demand direction in 2023 was, of course, ruble to USDT in Russia. First of all, it's the TRC20 network or the Ethereum network. If we're talking about the country where the money is being transferred to, it's naturally the United Arab Emirates, Dubai, and also Istanbul, Turkey. These two destinations, I believe, are record holders in terms of volume when it comes to money transfers.
But am I right in understanding that the period 2 years ago, when the whole story with the special military operation happened, everyone rushed to exchange rubles for dollars much faster? Then they passed a law that you couldn't take more than 10,000 with you, and everyone started buying Tether. And I talked to some of your colleagues in the field, and they told me that during those periods the profits during those times were very likely roughly equivalent to half a year's work at the previous pace before certain news broke. Did this affect you as well, or even more?
It definitely affected us. Yes, it really hit us quite hard, and we truly felt the impact.
That's cool.
Pretty hard in terms of a month or half a year, maybe even a bit more.
Cool, really cool. I also wanted to ask, look, you have a lot of offices. How often do you encounter problems with law enforcement agencies?
We do have to deal with the authorities. I'll explain the main reason why this happens. For example, a client comes to the exchange, buys some crypto for their wallet, but then later transfers it, let's say, into a pyramid scheme or to a broker or financial platform that promised him high returns. He transfers the money and then gets scammed. The victim goes to file a report with the police. A logical question arises, where did you bring the money? He brought the money to the exchange office, and that's when a fraud case is often opened, Article 159. And as part of that, the relevant authorities can come with a search, an inspection, or to conduct interrogations accordingly. Those who accepted the money may be questioned, and that's why this happens in such cases. Well, I wouldn't say it happens very often, but it does occur from time to time. Again, you need to have a strong legal team, and the employees themselves should know how to behave in these situations. So, again, we have certain regulations on this matter because we are always open. We never hide anything. If someone comes, we are straightforward. A client comes in, we provide a service before the sale, including for children. So in this case, we haven't broken any laws. We also have all the necessary evidence, videos, recordings, correspondence. Usually we provide these in such cases to show that we acted honestly. Moreover, we also warn clients about this. It's written in the agreement paperwork. It clearly states, do not transfer money to, and then there's a list of what not to do. The client signs this with their signature. This is explained to them, and we try, even when we see that if a client tries to send money to some obvious pyramid scheme, we realize it's a scam, plain and simple. So in those cases, we just try to talk them out of it.
But honestly, it usually doesn't help at all. Because by the time they come to us, they're so programmed that I think nothing will help them. I've met hundreds of people like that. Yes,
it's really tough, but sometimes we do manage to stop them, to get the person to explain everything from start to finish. Why did he suddenly decide to come to us now and make an exchange? After all, we have a lot of experience and we can see what's going on. And there have been cases where someone basically received a lucky letter in the mail and someone got in touch with him, some kind of curator over Skype, and it turns out they're still communicating over Skype. They're still in contact to this day. And this person was told that he could earn 30% a month by investing in something. They showed beautiful numbers and charts, and there were people on Skype who said, yes, we really did make that money. And as I understand it, people invest, and with a small amount just to test it. They actually pay out those percentages, but
they pressure them for more.
They push them to invest a big sum, and that's when they get scammed. In other words, the scheme is as old as time. It's a standard one among scammers. So that's why here, again, when dealing with the authorities, it's important to have a strong legal case, including a lawyer. The lawyer explained why. Because you need a lawyer to act competently from a legal standpoint. Because sometimes employees, when they come to the authorities, they haven't dealt with this before, they get scared, and they say things that are completely untrue.
And it's also important to understand that the employees themselves are incompetent in the crypto market.
They might misunderstand
the significance. This could work against you, so I completely agree. By the way, could you tell me, a few months ago I did a live stream with Ramis. He's the owner of Zenit Legal. I think you've heard of them. We've seen them at the Dubai exhibition in Moscow. So they're saying that now the government is optimizing the crypto story so much that you can now use crypto for a company's authorized capital. You can put crypto on the balance sheet, and now employees have learned to use tracking tools, meaning they monitor the origin of the funds. But as for what happens next, they don't know. So they're learning this in a timely manner. And I wanted to ask you, have you ever come across competent employees?
It happens, it does, but usually it's just a handful of people who really understand the whole essence. But I still think, as you rightly said, that over the years, competence has grown and employees are getting interested in this topic, delving into it, and now the majority of employees are like that. If 5 years ago, many didn't even understand what a crypto exchange was, they would more often say, yes, that's an accomplice. Crime, we don't know, it's a financial institution.
I had a similar situation. I exchanged cryptocurrency for cash with an order of 500,000 rubles in a single transaction, made the exchange, and handed the crypto over to the person. 6 months later, police officers came to my parents' house and said that I was one of the accomplices in some major scheme. Later, as it turned out, they rounded up everyone who had exchanged money, and I got caught too, even though I had just exchanged money on the exchange. But the officers came almost directly to me because the victim said, I gave the rubles here, and then I don't know. I was given cryptocurrency to that address. I sent it. It's not theirs. They didn't really care about that. What mattered to them was that the money was given to me, and it took a very long time for me. And it was hard for me to prove to them how I gave away and transferred that money. But still, it worked out, so I think it's just a matter of time. Very soon. I really believe and hope that soon our banks will allow us to buy foreign currency and send it to someone. If that happens, it will be really cool and convenient.
Well, cryptocurrency, yes.
Yes.
So even government agencies, law enforcement in particular, are starting to understand this better. And over the years, the trend is definitely moving toward improvement. They at least have a general idea now of what kind of financial institution a crypto exchange or crypto assets are.
They're listening. And you just mentioned that you're getting a license in Georgia? Yes. So now you have a general understanding of how the licensing and regulatory framework works there for exchanges. Tell me, is the current system that's available worldwide comfortable to understand, or is it still more complicated to work with?
But it's more complicated. Usually each jurisdiction has its own requirements that need to be met, and sometimes they seem like just formalities that can be followed. For example, in some states, you need to have certain things in place. There have to be local residents who, for instance, have a financial or legal background. So there are certain aspects like that which you have to overcome. And even if these people in reality aren't actually needed for operational activities, they are formally required just to obtain the license. I'm just sharing this as one of the cases. So yes, there are definitely challenges, but you can still find ways to get around them or solve them. But of course, it takes time.
We really believe and hope that things will get even better and more optimized for us. It's just a matter of time, as I said before. So I think that with the digital ruble, it will move forward much faster. By the way, what do you think about it?
About the digital ruble? Well, I see that they wanted to launch it last year, but for now, everything has been postponed. Yeah, so my attitude is that eventually it will come to this, because there have always been cash payments, then came the search for electronic payment systems, scripts, and now digital. But it makes sense, and I actually believe that yes, there will be a digital ruble, but in principle, crypto will still exist, and some payments will continue to be made through crypto, just like now. So the digital ruble will be a new form, but so to speak, it will simply be controlled. The issuance and circulation of money will be done directly by the central bank. Yes, not through banking institutions as it is now, with licenses.
So in the future, when cash rubles are completely replaced by the digital ruble, a person who wants to exchange money at a KeineExchange, for example, to swap crypto for digital rubles, will probably receive digital rubles directly from the company. Oh, KeineExchange, so to speak. Yes?
Well, I think most likely it will be the same format.
To be honest, I'm really looking forward to it. I want to see how it works. We'll see. Well, that's all from me, actually. Thank you very much for answering the questions that concerned me and the audience, because there were a lot of them. And you often write about exchange activities since it's the first entry point into the crypto market. It also works as an exit point. Thank you for coming. Thank you very much. It means a lot to me. I think we'll see each other again soon and talk in a year about how your results turned out.
Thank you so much for watching. Thank you very much for your time.